Hey, Jen.
Hey, Marina. Sun's
So
shining again today. It's a
yeah,
beautiful
yeah,
day.
it is. Um,
Mm.
so we had an FHA borrower the other day wanting to make an offer. We like to do this, right? When we have like the file ready, they want to make an offer. We ask for the address. Obviously, we want to pull in the tax bill. But this one, I mean, obviously it was an FHA loan, but the roof kind of looked bad. I mean,
Yeah.
I noticed handrail issues. It brought up the question of what are FHA requirements of a property
Yeah.
in terms of conditions,
Absolutely.
of
Yeah,
the condition rather.
it's a great question, and it's sometimes, well, actually very often overlooked. Um, the real estate agents want to have the knowledge that there are minimum FHA requirements for a house. So when they're out showing these houses to clients, they want to be able to be like, you know what, this might come up, this might come up, this might come up. Again, communication. The more you know up front, the better. So the biggest things are, like you said, peeling paint. There can't be any peeling paint anywhere on that property, anywhere on the house, anywhere on a fence, anywhere on a shed, anywhere peeling paint is. There can't be any peeling paint on that. And that comes up a lot because you don't really pay attention to it that much when you walk through a house. But say there's cement stairs going into the basement and somebody painted those at some point and the paint has chipped off. The FHA appraiser can note that on the appraisal. And these are things that come up on the FHA appraisal. This has nothing to do with the home inspection. Home inspection is a totally different thing. And I have people ask me that all the time. Well, I have the home inspection back, everything came back fine. Well, unfortunately that isn't the deciding factor on the FHAs. The FHA appraiser goes out and knows the standards and the requirements that FHA has. So it's looking for the peeling paint. Say there's a big water leak on the ceiling, in the downstairs. We need proof that whatever caused that leak was rectified. Show me that the plumbing was fixed 2 years ago and the toilet leaked. Whatever it is. We always tell people when they're listing a house, take care of these things before you list the house. You got a watermark on the ceiling and you repaired that issue 8 years ago. Well, paint that ceiling so it doesn't come up. Take care of as many items as you can to ease the pain, so to say, when that appraiser goes out. Exposed wires, bad. You kind of think if a small child was to walk into this house right now, is there anything that's going to make that child sick or injure that child? Steps, you had mentioned railings. If there's more than 2 steps, you need a railing on it. It doesn't have to be fancy. I tell people 2 2x4s, nail them together, install it, done. There's your railing. If you have to take care of some peeling paint, it doesn't have to match. It just has to be scraped. You can throw primer on it. That's absolutely fine.
Okay, so I'm glad you asked that because I'm having questions for the list you just mentioned. So going back to paint, it is just as simple as putting a coat on the peel?
It absolutely,
Okay.
as long as the peeling paint and at least a primer is on it, that's all that matters.
Okay.
It can be a white house and you use black primer, nobody cares. It does not have to be pretty.
Why is peeling paint such a big issue for FHA?
Yeah,
what does it have to do with?
It has to do with lead paint. So it's really on houses built before 1978, which is the majority of our houses in this area. They're afraid that a little child is going to eat that paint and get lead poisoning.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, but isn't even just being in the vicinity of lead paint bad? It says you don't actually have to ingest it.
It's true.
Okay.
Yeah, it's true. But
so we're not addressing the actual issue. We're just covering it.
Potentially, we can only do so much.
Fair.
If it's scraped and painted, then it's contained. The process is it's contained at that point. You can dive in really deep on the peeling paint thing. And make a big deal out of it if you want to, but FHA tries to be reasonable about it because they feel you're going to move into the house and you're not going to want anything to affect your family either. So if you feel there's an issue beyond their standards, you're going to take care of that.
Right, at a later point, as long as it's taken care of in this
not like encapsulated.
The water leak.
Yep.
You said, so what's to stop somebody from just covering it up aesthetically, but the inspection will reveal if there is still an issue.
Correct.
So it's not that there is actually still an issue,
Correct.
It's just a matter of...
Correct. And sometimes we do then rely on the inspection. The person will be like, well, we did the inspection and it says nothing is wrong with the upstairs toilet that caused the leak 4 years ago. And we might say, all right, give us a copy of the home inspection. Okay. Have the inspector just write a quick letter that says there are no water leaks at this time. Something as simple as that. We try to work with people and stuff like that, not to go too crazy. But, if you hear water dripping and the ceiling is still wet, there might still be an issue.
Yeah.
And a lot of this goes back to, as well as a lot of times on FHAs, people are putting a minimum amount down and they usually don't have tons of cash sitting in the bank still after they close. So they don't want them to set them up for failure. And
Right.
all of a sudden that pipe breaks and the ceiling falls down,
Oh,
and now they have no money to fix it.
yeah.
Now they just bought a house that they can't live in, and they have no money to fix it. So, some of it really truly is there. I mean, the majority of it's there to protect you. People get angry. Well, that's ridiculous. I'll take care of that after I close. Well, you know what? How many projects do you have in your house that you said you were going to do last year,
52.
the year before,
Yeah.
the year before?
Yeah.
It just doesn't get done until, there's an absolute emergency. So it all comes down to that, protecting the people who are buying it, protecting the bank's interest, just making sure people are protected. There's other stuff. There's other bigger things. You can't be within a certain distance from in-ground gas tanks. So if you're too close to a gas station, you just can't. FHA won't allow financing on it.
Interesting.
Power lines. There's a drop zone on power lines. The overhead power lines. It has
Yeah.
to be a certain distance from the drop line, which is a little tricky to get sometimes because then you have to really dig in. How far away are those drop lines? Roof. You had mentioned a roof. Has to have at least 2 years life left on the roof. If the home inspector cannot determine that, then you have to have a roofer come in and say there's at least 2 years left on it. If there's not, then you need to get it done. And any of these repairs have to be done prior to getting a clear to close on the mortgage. It's not something that a handy person who's going to move in is going to do it after, and
Right.
they're absolutely fine. Oh, we're going to do it the day after we move in.
No, doesn't
They
work like
have to
that.
be done before, yeah. And FHA doesn't care who does them. It can be the seller, it can be the buyer, it can be the next door neighbor. They don't care who does it. It's just a matter of everybody working together to try to figure out a solution. Most times it's the seller who will do it, but if you have a situation where it's, say, probate, where the people have died and the kids own it now and they're out of town, they don't want anything to do with it. They just want to sell the house. So sometimes they'll allow the buyer to do what's called a use and occupancy, I think it's called, where they'll let the buyer come in, do some work to the house, do the repairs to the house prior to closing,
Oh, great.
and then get it done that way. Yeah, we truly do not care who does it.
Would any of this, in your experience, deter a seller from selling to a buyer who's
Yeah.
FHA financing?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question, especially in the current market we're in that's so competitive. Um, you're probably going to favor a conventional offer over an FHA offer. If you have anything potentially wrong with your house, even if you think your house is perfect, you're going to be like, well, this conventional offer here, I know I'm not going to have to do any repairs, nothing. Even if something comes up, I don't have to do it. Where this FHA one, if something comes up, I'm going to have to do it. That's more money out of my pocket. So I'm
Right.
just going to go. I'm going to go the easier route on this. I'm going to take the conventional, even though the FHA one they're offering maybe a little more money. I'm going to stick over here with this one. And I just had this guy did a first time homebuyer seminar last night, and I had this conversation like an early pre-approval. This is a little off subject, but an early pre-approval will potentially help you be that conventional buyer, be able to get into conventional financing as opposed to FHA, which is going to potentially help you get that offer accepted as
Right.
opposed to FHA. So, it's all a process. It's slightly off topic, but if you can go in with a conventional offer, you're not going to have to worry about those. And say you are that handy person and you are buying this house, it's a very well priced house because it needs work, and you're somebody who can do all the work yourself. You don't want to do that FHA offer because they're
Right.
going to make you do the work prior. Like I understand I have to do all this work. I'm going to make a conventional offer. I'm going to do all this work after.
You want to take your
after
time.
closing.
And do
Right.
It, yeah.
Right. Well, I was going to rip the kitchen out anyways, so I don't care about the whatever it is. So it's just everything's important to put those ducks in a row. Get that pre-approval ahead of time, even if you have to wait a month or two because your credit scores need another 10 points. Let's do something so we can make it so you're a stronger buyer. It's not a better buyer, just a stronger buyer, because sellers absolutely are looking for those conventional offers. But it does get a little tricky on the FHAs. I feel really bad in this market because it is so competitive. These people need a house, and these people are passionate about buying a house, and they just losing offer after offer. So anything they can really do to put them in a better situation. But I have an FHA. It's kind of like a little tip sheet that I try to give to agents whenever they're working with an FHA buyer, just to give them the heads up of what to look for in the house when going through it. So there's no surprises. Water, sewer hookup. If the house isn't hooked up to public water and sewer, and it's on the street, FHA requires it to be hooked up unless you can show a hardship. And a lot of people don't know that, and it hits you in the face when that comes up. It's
Yeah.
like, oh crap, I didn't expect to have to do that.
So it's a good practice to just, when you send the pre-approval letter, if it's FHA, just send that
And the
back,
tips letter.
the tips sheet right
Yeah.
along with it, just so they're prepared.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, I mean FHA or condos,
That's a different ballgame,
it's a
though.
whole different story,
Yeah.
but it's really important that you know that FHA has an approved condo list.
The list is kind of dwindling, isn't it?
It's
A lot of
dwindled.
condos don't want to even bother being FHA approved
It's totally
anymore.
dwindled. Yeah, it's too bad because FHA buyers often are in condo price ranges.
Right.
Yeah. And it's really eliminated them. I mean, there's ways around it. Again, conventional, they allow 3% down. There's stuff out there, but I love FHA. It's a great product. It allows for lower credit scores. It allows for lower down payment.
Hmm.
It allows you to maximize your debt to income ratio. So it's a great product for first time home buyers, but not only first time home buyers. You can use it over and over again. So it's a great product. It helps people get into stuff, but it is a little tricky sometimes.
Yeah. Strict.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks,
Yeah.
Jen.
Thanks, Maria.
I don't know. What else do we have?